fooling around with. We're going to start a couple minutes late, but welcome.
River and fight against. That's actually really great. Well, not to take much of your time. I always appreciate coming back here. One thing that, so I'm going to like do a little bit of house cleaning. I can't tell you how much I appreciated the invite to come talk about striped bass at the last meeting. And that has spawned something else you should know. John Tiedemann, who was here from Monmouth University, he thought it was such a great idea what you guys had put together that he's working on trying to get a grant from Sea Grant to do another roundtable discussion, perhaps to do it at the Saltwater Fishing Expo. So he'd like to do a kind of a two-pronged approach with scientists and anglers to talk about the need for better release techniques for striped bass. So that all came from this group. So I can't thank you guys enough for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Talk about the magazine. So many folks read it. I appreciate it, but I did bring copies of the June edition, and that's where we were talking before about the striped bass situation, 28 to 31 inches. There's a couple of write-ups in the June edition that explains what happened with the ASMFC. And I would like to know that the New Jersey Marine Fisheries Council is meeting on Tuesday, June 20th, an emergency session to take up that final vote for New Jersey. I do believe the New York Marine Resources Advisory Council, I think they've agreed to go to the 28 to 31. So my assumption is both New York, New Jersey, I know Delaware is already in place, so we'll see that 28 to 31 sizing in place for the time frame, July 1st. You mentioned Pete Barrett, a very important person in my life, my mentor. He hired me in 2002 to be the, this is actually funny. He hired me to help him as the editor of the Fisherman magazine. And I think on my first day in the job, he handed me the whole package and all the folders. And he said, your next due date is Thursday. So I started hitting these deadlines immediately. There was no apprenticeship. But then Pete told me that I had to write an editor's log every week, which I still, I love to be able to do now, do 38 of them a year. And at that time, we were doing 50 a year. So I was consumed with this idea that I had to write an editorial. Pete said, you know, just retell a story from your past, talk about fisheries management. He said, you can always attack the state. Going after bureaucrats is easy pickings. You can always do that. He said, but in terms of fisheries management, if you ever get in bind, you can always go to Jim Donofrio at the Recreation and Fishing Alliance or go to Tom Cody at the JCAA. They'll help you along. I appreciate that. So I got to know both of those guys pretty well. There's one time, and this is important for me as I introduced Cindy, because I think it was 2003, maybe it was 2004. Tom had come to me, and no disrespect to Tom if he's listening, but I still am a little bit torqued at this. Tom had come to me and he said, listen, I got a scoop for you. I want you to editorialize on this. He gave me the information. He said, Cindy Zipf is opposed to New Jersey's artificial reef program. She's using, she says all these subway cars have asbestos and we got to attack. So I went with it and I wrote an editorial blasting Cindy Zipf for being against the New Jersey artificial reefs. I got a call as soon as that magazine came out from Derry Bennett from the American Littoral Society. And Derry said, I don't like the article you wrote. I said, okay. He goes, I'd like you to come talk to me. I said, I'd be happy to. By the end of the week, I was sitting in his office. I think Pam Carlson was there. And I sat down with Derry, and Derry explained to me, he said, listen, we had a meeting, Tom, Derry, Cindy, to discuss artificial reefs and materials of opportunity that were made available. Could be subway cars, could be Volkswagens, could be old refrigerators, could be whatever reef materials that needed to be done. But they were having a brainstorm session. I believe it was at ALS. And Derry told me that we were spitballing and brainstorming, but the agreement was nothing leaves this room. So there were a lot of concerns brought up about taking materials of opportunity that may or may not be good for our artificial reef program. Which in hindsight, if you looked at the subway cars, I think those Redbirds were the ones that fell apart immediately. So they turned out to be terrible pieces of structure. But Derry explained to me that this was an adults only meeting where nothing leaves this room. So I said, well, I got the information from Tom. He said, I know you. So I said to Derry, I was like, well, I want to be fair about this. I want to give you the opportunity to respond to what I wrote. He goes, I'm not going to do that. Because Derry said that would violate what we said. Nothing leaves this room. I just wanted to let you know what happened, but we're not going to respond. We're going to let it go. And I did let it go. And I learned a valuable lesson. And it was about 8 years later, maybe more, that I saw Cindy at an event, and I went up to her and I explained what happened. And I said, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I have apologized several times on editors' logs that I have written. And I can tell you this, that the artificial reef program in the state of New Jersey has become a hot button topic over the last 15 years. A lot of things are said about the artificial reef program and different individuals. Some of them are not true, some of them aren't. I got involved in that same thing where people said things about me and I just let it go. So the artificial reef program has been a very contentious issue. If you do get the Fisherman magazine on a weekly basis, I hope you would read the editorial I wrote this week because it's all about the artificial reefs. And one big thing is that the reef program is back. New Jersey's building reefs. And the sport fishing fund is taking funding again. And everything is kind of back to normal. But the point being that in all the years that I've known Cindy Zipf at Clean Ocean Action, I can't say that I've agreed 100% with everything that Cindy has said, but Cindy has been a champion of ocean resources, has been a champion of clean oceans, obviously, of our fisheries as well. We've never had a disagreement, I think, on any fisheries regulation because Cindy has always stressed that she's not getting involved in it. But Cindy and I share a very firm belief that, well, I share a belief that she has, that I am absolutely 100% opposed to the industrialization of our ocean for any purpose. I don't think it's, I don't support it. But Cindy has been one who has been standing up and speaking from that perspective and about the resource, about the science related to this industrial offshore wind program. She's been the one environmentalist who's always been a unique and solo voice in many ways, because she's been willing to stand up and speak her mind and speak on the resource. And she has been attacked on that in the past, and she probably will be attacked on that in the future. But I thank you so much. I remember, just real quick, I grew up in Long Beach Island, and my memory of being a kid is all in black and white. Everything was black and white. The ocean was black and white. And water was not clean, striped bass weren't plentiful. Remember beach whistles that used to wash up? Remember the summer of '87 when we had the dolphin deaths and the syringes? What Cindy's done for Clean Ocean, through Clean Ocean Action and the ban ocean dumping and to protect this resource, I can't thank you enough for all the work that you've done over the years. Thank you for this time for me to get something off my chest because it's sort of like maybe an intervention or something like that. But I needed that needed to be said. I thank you for the time, Cindy. I'm looking forward to watching the presentation.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, wow. That's about the best introduction I've ever had. And I learned some things too. Can I do a really creepy, I want to take a picture for
Get the
Pam.
mic, Cindy, the mic.
Yeah, well, you don't need, do I need, I just want to take a photo for Pam Carlson.
All right.
Can I get in this?
So, yes, of course.
I used to
absolutely.
work with her brother.
Oh, I'm sure.
There we go. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you. He's doing great. Amazing. Oh, I love it. So great to see so many familiar faces. And yes, it's been an extraordinary history along the way. When I started back in 1984, little did I know, I didn't think it would take this long. My father was a recreational fisherman, and I was the only one in the family that really loved saltwater and getting, watching the docks. I'll tell you this one fishing story. So I used to love being with my dad and with his fishing buddies, and we were fishing off a beaten stock, which was on the Shrewsbury River. And it was all, to hang out with all of his fishing buddies was a real honor for me. And they apparently, and I was like 9 years old, they needed to have a meeting. And so they were going to go inside and have a meeting, and I was put in charge of watching all the rocks. I have a feeling that there were some beers and like TV and maybe some other stuff, but let's go do it. Anyway, I had the job, and so so there were, I think, 8 rods out, and my only companion was Little Bear, which was a lab who loved bait more than the fish did, and so my job also is to make sure Little Bear stayed away from the bait. And so one of the rods started running, and I started yelling to the house because I wasn't really given direction on what to do. but the rod started moving.
Sound familiar?
So I grabbed the rod and I'm holding the rod and, you know, it's really running. And so they all were piling out of the house and they came up, they got set the hook, they set everything up and I started reeling back in and, they let me pull it in a little bit and it was getting really hard and we brought it and there must have been an eel about this. And it was like, I had never seen anything like it, and I only caught little snapper blues, and, so, you know, Mr. Murphy goes into his top box and starts pulling things, comes out with an axe, and I'm like going, oh my God. And he goes out and he attacks the eel with the axe all over the dock. And then there's little squirming pieces of eel all over the dock. And I'm like, this is like not the experience I've ever had. I'm really I don't know what to do. And then Little Bear comes charging down and grabs one of the pieces of eel and it's sitting out of his mouth like a cigar. And the whispers, you know, like, get out of here, Little Bear. And that moment was just so extraordinary for me. And, you know, it didn't turn me off of fishing, but, you know, it was certainly a very monumental event in my life. And
Great story.
It was a great experience, but, yeah, I have a great, love of fishing it's in my soul. And, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. So that is what started me on this great path, and I could have never imagined having this greatest job that could have never even imagined, which is defending the ocean that means so much to me and has brought me such joy. You know, defending her, I call her. You know, for a career, for a living, for a life, for a passion. It's really great. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing. And I know some of you guys. I mean, we've been fighting all these battles. I mean, the PCBs with Charlie Stam, and we go way, way back on a lot of these issues, and we've come so far. But I appreciate it. Do you need a microphone?
No, I have something to say about the first slide, or just really, Dave pointed this out. So sorry to interrupt, but I talked about Robert Boyle, when I met him. The reason he came by is he let us know that he is giving us the sole right to Hudson River Fishermen's Association. There's no longer the New Jersey chapter. So we took it off of our little emblem there. So that's the latest news that, well, it's a couple of years old now, but we didn't really spread that around too much. But so we are the Hudson River Fishermen's Association. So when you see our webpage and stuff, it's all capital THE, the Hudson River.
All right.
That's
Well, I will make note of that.
Sorry. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good. That's great. So, sorry for the typo. That's bad to have your first slide with a typo.
No.
But anyway,
It's better.
you know, it's very different, but everybody has a different story, and you all have more stories than probably most people. But everybody finds just part of it. Little girl skills. And then there's the economic side of the ocean, which is huge. And, you know, we all benefit from that, right, because of the tax revenues, but there's the region of the ocean, which includes $38 billion. Most of that, the tourism, about $38 billion. Most of that is related to the ocean, which is no surprise to all of you. And obviously the fishing and you know, commercial and recreational is a big part of that as well.
Good.
But you know, when I talk to people, there are some people that are like, well, I don't do any of that. And I'm like, well,
TV, I got it. I'm sorry.
So every other breath you take is a gift from the ocean. So you have a big stake in the ocean. The ocean is also one of the more misunderstood or not recognized gifts from the ocean is that it's a climate change. It is our best climate change. Up into the atmosphere, it's gone into the ocean in about 30 to 50 CO2. So if it wasn't for the ocean, we'd already, right, our ships would already be experiencing a lot more. You know, on, I think a lot more, we have to be a lot more, so, but I wanted sort of saying that all of these things absolutely free of charge. And I just, you know, to think about just all that we reap from it, but all that in terms of economics that we get, it's all free. All we have to do is keep her healthy. That's it. It's kind of a good deal, you know, maybe one of the best deals in the ever. It's just really all we have to do. And I'm just, you know, in awe of all that the ocean provides, and particularly with this little area that we call the New York Bight, which is such a terrible name, but this area is so unique in the global ocean. First of all, you know what this is, right? It's a photograph of the ocean if there wasn't any ocean part, right? It's the underwater parts of the ocean. And, you know, we have the Hudson Canyon, which I know you guys all know about and fish about, and people are amazed. They're like, they can't think about a time when, you know, the waters were all frozen in the glacial periods, and that, you know, there was actually land out here, and that the river actually, the Hudson River actually went out on these lands, and that this is the Hudson River that's basically been drowned by sea level rise. But, you know, so that's really unique. A lot of people don't know about that. You know, the fact that we have cold water and warm water throughout the year. So this is Florida, where, you know, we have got the warm water, the Gulf Stream coming up, right? And then in the winter time, we have more of the Labrador currents coming down. So we get cold water and warm water species. That doesn't happen in a lot of places in the world. And then you add on top of that, you know, the incredible amount of marine life that we have because of that warm water and cold water and the canyon and all that we have. We have so many different life, from the tiniest little critters that can turn our ocean absolutely phosphorescent. How many of you have seen that?
Yeah, fish.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is so spectacular and so extraordinary. We have, you know, ancient mariners, we have horseshoe crabs, which have been around for 350 million years. We have 33 species of whales and dolphins, cetaceans. That is very, very unique. A lot of places in the sun have 33 different species of whales and dolphins. That is very unique. We'll talk more about the whales in a minute, but it's really amazing. And we have 5 species of sea turtles. There's only 7 species of sea turtles on the planet, and 5 of them hang out off the Jersey Shore. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, and the South Shore, I'm sorry to be so Jersey centric here. You know, and you know, how many of you have seen them offshore if you go offshore? You know, it's really, you know, just remarkable how much life there is. There's about 300 species of fish. Of course, one of your favorites. But there's lots of species of birds too that depend on the ocean realm. 4 species of seals, which in the wintertime, and we even have some underwater corals that you know, out in the deep canyon, which are, you know, lots of people don't know about. And then of those species, we have about 14 of them are threatened and endangered. And you know, those need a little bit more care, but how extraordinary to have so much rich diversity of life downstream of, you know, one of the most densely populated urbanized areas in America, in the world, actually. And in 1984, when Clean Ocean Action started, you know, I'm going to rip through this stuff really quickly because we touched on it. We were the ocean dumping capital of the world. You know, we had 8 ocean dump sites that the government legally managed to dump stuff like sewage sludge, acid waste, industrial waste. Who remembers the wood burning? There's that one right there. really just spectacularly stupid things that the government legally allowed. We had the tar balls on our feet, everybody had to, deal with that, and, we basically treated the ocean like a garbage can, literally, because the Fresh Kills landfill was a huge source of litter in the ocean, because the open barges of trash would be coming from all the 5 boroughs of Manhattan over to Staten Island, and the wind would be blowing that stuff right off the top of the barge. It was, really, it was terrible. So we got together, Clean Ocean Action, there's Derry Bennett right there at our very first press conference, talking about, the problems that were being had. And it was a time when commercial and recreational fishermen started working together, which really didn't kind of happen back then. It was really not all that common for there to be like very, terse conversations. But when we got together, the rule was you're not allowed to talk about fish and the meetings. You only talk about the ocean and make it cleaner and healthier, so there can be more and more fish, so there would be some, more enough for everybody. We all got together and we worked on lots of different campaigns. As I mentioned, the GE campaign. So we were dump site free for the first time in 100 years in the year 2000. Because of all of the collective voices of the coalition, HRFA, a big part of that. We're still working on some sticky problems like offshore oil and gas drilling, which we're trying to stop. That's still a threat. Clean Ocean Action drafted a bill and got a bill passed in the legislature that prohibited offshore oil and gas drilling in Jersey waters, which isn't very much because it only goes out to 3 miles. But the good news was we also said we couldn't put any infrastructure for oil and gas development in New Jersey waters. So if someone wanted to go offshore and drill, they'd have to find some other coast to do it. So we said, oh, you think you've got us. So we shared that legislation with some friends in other states. So we got most of the states in the East Coast and all of them on the West Coast to pass laws for similar. So they don't have a way to bring that up. So that was a recent success. Then they wanted to build liquefied natural gas facilities out in the ocean. I don't know if you remember that ordeal. There were 4. One wanted to actually build an island. We called it Insanity Island. They wanted to build an island right off of Sandy Hook where they build a liquefied natural gas transfer station. Crazy stuff. But anyway, together we beat all that back. And over the years, right, the ocean has come back from those days that Jim was talking about, where it's just black and dark and bleak and dead and dying dolphins, and there were fish kills after fish kills. So many wrecks had fish kills on them. The oxygen was just so depleted. So we've come a long way, and the ocean is just thriving, right? I mean, it's just thriving, and rather than us just behold that and hold on to that and keep that healthy ocean going, so that we can sustain that going forward, again, government has a way of coming up with some really bad ideas. And remember, a clean and healthy ocean is our best buffer to climate change. And what have we got? We've got this new industry that is just literally booming. It's gone.
It's me and this other guy.
Can't even hear it.
Yeah, we lost sound here.
I don't even know who the fuck that is.
Because we lost sound.
I don't know who this nobody is.
Imagine, if you're a fish species that's affected by electromagnetic fields and you're coming right into the estuary and you're gonna be, causing a lot of damage. So we're gonna talk about that in a minute or create a lot of confusion for marine life. Imagine you're a whale or a fish and you wanna try to migrate. It's gonna be very difficult. And the scale and scope is unbelievable as well. So we're talking as tall as a Chrysler building. That's how tall these things are. One blade is as tall as the Statue of Liberty.
Wow.
The
Wow.
scale is just unbelievable. You cannot imagine the scale. Just imagine you're standing up at the Chrysler building, it's just, that's how tall they are. And people just, sometimes if they think of these little things like off of Block Island, those are infants. Those are babies, and they're not the same infrastructure. They're gonna be using monopoles, these massive 50-foot diameter monopoles that they have to bang in using pile driving. So it's here's the scale of sort of some of the turbines. You can see the blades. Those are it's just, again, the scale is big. And there's been too little research. There's hardly any research being done at all. It's just beginning to start, and the reason it's beginning to start is because they've had no money for real ocean research. You guys know that better than anybody. You've got some on fisheries related stuff, but from an ecosystem, there's no money for that. So guess who's supplying all the money to do the research? The offshore wind industry, which, by the way, is the oil industry. And we'll get into that in a minute too. But so one of the other things that I didn't mention in what makes this area so unique is the cold pool. How many of you know about the cold pool? Okay, all right. The cold pool is this is the only area in the world where such a thing happens. And that's where you get the cold water and the warm water in the summertime. You get that thermocline, right? That is so unique, and it's very fragile, and it's all just right around off the Jersey Shore, right off our coast primarily, the mid-Atlantic area. It's very unique, and it's very at risk, is all I can say, because here it is then, cold pool. So it's a very distinct. Very distinct. You can see the warm water. This is it's very distinct, and it's what makes all the fish able to survive the summer here, and it's very tied to their to a lot of fish life cycle and reproductive cycle. It's critically important, and if we mess with that, we mess with the whole ecosystem. So I want you to take a look at these two slides. So you can see, so these are turbines in Europe from a very distant view. You can see the turbidity, the plume of sediments that get picked up going around these monopoles. So you can see how much that causes turbidity. Just imagine if there's a cold pool that depends on being very, the water columns being very staid, right? Like there's not a lot of turbidity in those waters. They need to get stratified and be stable. And you're going to mix it all up with thousands of turbines and create mixing around those turbines.
And you can kind of see it a little bit here too, but this is a much more effective photograph. And then in addition to that, these turbines also create their own sort of weather systems where it creates these what they call sorry, it's called well, it'll come to me in a minute. But they're the wakes, wake effects. You think wakes, we're talking about the water, but these are called wake effects, and the energy is being taken out of the ocean's wind. So it's creating these fog banks. So these fog banks are going to be created off the Jersey Shore. And this energy that the wind provides is going to be taken out of the system. So if you don't replace, and it's not replaceable, right? It's not like there's some wind god up there that maybe that's what they think. There's not some wind god up there blowing, you know, and will keep blowing. This is it. You know, if we take the energy out, and with every turbine that gets built, that energy gets sucked away from another turbine and another turbine. So the more turbines you put out there, the less wind energy you have. And so that's something that the engineers are getting a little worried about with 3,500 turbines. They keep taking all that out. And then, but what we're worried about is what happens to our climate? What happens to our climate at the Jersey Shore and off in New York? What happens there? So one of the big claims is that offshore wind will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But one of the things that they are including, this is the EPA saying that this, they have from one of these turbines, something called SF6, which I had never heard of before, but it's sulfur hexafluoride, which is 23,000 times more effective at trapping infrared radiation. And it's a very stable chemical that lasts for 3,200 years. So what they're putting, so one of the things that the turbines have is something that causes, you know, so much more greenhouse gas emissions. And the EPA even wants to know, how are you guys gonna solve this? Like, you want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but if you're using one of the worst offenders, how are you going to still reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Even the National Renewable Energy Lab, if you look into this stuff, that's the big guru. That's the big guru that looks at this renewable energy. It's our taxpayer dollars, but it's overseen by a corporation, that multinational corporation. And the color, this is what they need to know for developing offshore wind. What is in color is what they know. What's in white, they don't know anything about. So they're building this pyramid without having, you know, they're going forward with this when they don't even have half the pyramid filled in terms of knowledge about what they're doing. The only thing I'm trying to share with you is that even though folks that are promoting this stuff the most and the hardest know that they don't know. And a big part of what they don't know is what they don't know. Which is why it's so, you know, unbelievable to me that when all the whales started washing up, and we started looking into things that, you know, they know for 100% fact that it has nothing to do with the offshore wind.
That's right.
And they know nothing, so little about what's going on. So they will be harassing endangered species like the North Atlantic right whale, which if you're a fisherman or if you're a commercial fisherman, you're not allowed to look at them. You know, you're not, and there's great numbers of restrictions on them. Well, we, you know, we looked into the, when the whales started dying up, we had been commenting on incidental harassment authorizations. It's all alphabet soup, right? But you folks are used to with all your fisheries management stuff. I mean, I sit at fisheries management meetings sometimes and I'm like going, oh my God, alphabet soup. You know, it's just so many different acronyms, but this is incidental harassment authorizations. There's a law called the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And all marine mammals are protected, not turtles, even though they're all endangered species. Mammals exclusively are not allowed to be harassed. So if you're going to do something that's going to harass a mammal, you have to get a permit for that, or an authorization for that, kind of like a permit. So we looked into that, and we had been commenting on quite a few, but we never really added them all up. And this is through the National Marine Fisheries Service. So there were 11 companies that had harassment authorizations in the time in the window when the whales started washing up in December and in January, 11 companies had permits to harass a total of 63,820 animals. We said, holy cow, if they're giving permits for thousands and thousands of animals to be harassed, and there's 11 companies out there, wait, perhaps all those companies out there who are doing pre-construction activity, which includes sparkers, boomers, and sonar, otherwise known as some seismic activity, maybe that has something to do with it. So on whale number 6, we wrote a letter to the president saying, hey, wait, we had 6 whales at that point, 6 whales in less than a month. We thought something's going on here. Maybe it's all these survey boats. We've got 11 companies out there all making noise marine mammals really don't like. We want an investigation. Well, you would have thought, there's more projects to come with even more harassments. You would have thought we said that the sky is not blue. It's, because the reaction was just so severe, saying, how dare you, there's no way possible that any of these whale deaths were caused by offshore wind or any pre-construction of offshore wind. We said, okay, well, where's your proof? Fine, you think that, where's your proof? We've not gotten any proof, and now we're up to even more. This was 12 whales within 3 months. And then the dolphins, yeah.
Not to tell you, I think 1 or 2 came up on Marcus.
They did, yeah.
And they're doing more work out there. They're doing a lot more work out there. So, the toll just keeps on going and going and going. And when, you see some of this stuff that's going on. So what they claimed very quickly is it's the shipping industry. There's more shipping, so it's a shipping industry. Well, we looked at that, and there's been shipping for years, decades, 100 years. The whales, I think, have figured that out. Those big noisy things, they kind of figured it out. Because otherwise they'd be dying every day because there's so much shipping. So they blamed it on this fishing industry, on the shipping industry. But I'm not buying it because of those reasons. And the ships go in a straight line. They want to get from point A to point B in the fastest possible time, right? So they're just going in one line. They're not doing the loop-de-loos that these survey boats do. You can go online on marine traffic. I'm sure you guys do it all the time, but if you look at some of these boats, ooh, that came out really a lot fuzzier, but they're going like this, they're going like this, they're making erratic turns, they're making noises, and there's as many as 7, 11, 8, 10, 12 boats all out there doing all this stuff. So if you're a whale in the area and you get disoriented and you try hiding from that or trying to get away from that, you could be getting up into the surface more, making yourself more vulnerable to ship traffic. We're not saying shipping isn't, but we're just saying that it's plausible that with 11 active offshore wind permits, and this is just, again, this is the beginning, and this is the quiet stuff. When they start pile driving these monopoles in, it's going to send shock waves, which I'm going to talk about in 1 second. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but I'm just really beginning to worry that the government's trying to hide things, because one of the things I want to have the facts. And I just found this article yesterday. One of the things, windmills on land are killing a lot of eagles, bald eagles.
Yeah.
And they get fined for that. And here's 2013 where the fines were being issued. This was all violations with charges, and then violations resulting in jail or fines. So here's where you can see it's going down, down, down. But it's dropped off since the Biden administration has take over. They've gone down to practically 0. And there are still eagle deaths. They're just not prosecuting. They're just not going after them as much. So I'm beginning to get concerned that we're not going to find out.
It's either that or there's fewer eagles to kill.
Yeah, well, maybe they're coming all around here. How many of you have seen them?
I
Right?
see them all the time.
So many. Yeah, maybe that's well, and then they're going to find the wind turbines here.
Mhm. Yeah.
So this is a terrible slide with all these words, but I just want to highlight what on the fisheries impacts, and maybe Jim could speak to some of that as well, but the pile drive, this is what they found for Vineyard Wind. Vineyard Wind is a little bit further along, so they're already doing a little bit more of finding out a little bit more of so we can learn from them, but they're saying the repeated blast from the pile driving into the ocean floor can cause fish kills. The sound waves impact, which can be felt underwater from 50 miles away, and can cause cumulative stress response that disrupts the ability of the fish to feed or spawn. This is, you know, again, you saw the map of where all these facilities are going to be. There's going to be no escape for any fish. 50 miles, they're all less than 50 miles from each other. So this is South Forks. It talks about, you know, again, the cod and 20 other species vital to the marine ecosystem. Turbine locations may result in cascading long-term permanent effects to the species that rely on the area. So again, South Fork, developers were explicit that to BOEM for the risks of the turbine construction, that this intense sound pressure waves may result in injury or mortality by rupturing swim bladders or internal hemorrhaging. What fish have swim bladders? Atlantic sturgeon, endangered, Atlantic butterfish, mackerel, sea bass, bluefish, haddock, monkfish, ocean pout, red hake, scope, bluefin tuna, yellowfin tuna, striped bass, and tautog.
But other than that, no.
Other than that, all the other species will be fine.
So,
yeah.
Cindy, I just want to say, you know,
Yeah.
and you mentioned those kind of facts that the other side, that pro windmills is generating and letting people know about. When I talk to anglers for offshore wind, they say I'm cherry picking the data. I'm cherry picking what I mean. It's the fact. I mean,
Cherry, I mean, that's a pretty important cherry. If, you know, you're talking about, you know, that's just, you know, where's their data to say this isn't gonna happen? Where's their data? All they can say, and their biggest response right now, which is to me, you know, very uncomfortable as an environmentalist, they say, climate change is causing so much damage, and climate change will cause even worse damage. And, you know, you can't say no to that, right? You can't argue that, because they can just, you know, how do you say, well, you're wrong? And, you know, it's just an argument that has no conversation. They don't want to provide me evidence that says, oh, no, here's 6 scientists that say that this isn't going to happen. They're just saying, well, it's worse. Climate change is worse. The other important things, and this is from the National Marine Fisheries Service. This is Andrew Lipsky, one of the few fisheries from NIMS that's talking about things. We're building this ship as we're sailing it. When we don't think through the science, we often get ourselves in trouble, you think? So this is a scientist, a fisheries analyst studying the habitat of the ones off of South Fork, which is off of the, you know, out in the, out off South Shore of New York, off Montauk. It's frustrating that there aren't clear requirements to avoid the impact. So there are no laws to avoid the impact. There isn't much we have the ability to do. So even where they are raising the concerns, BOEM, who is the big agency, the Uber agency now that's just absolutely in charge. They put National Marine Fisheries Service under their thumb. They've got all sorts of memorandums of agreement, memorandums of understanding. National Marine Fisheries is not allowed to say boo without asking BOEM's permission on this issue. And not that they're the greatest, you know, advocates necessarily, but they've been trying, even they've been trying. And the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management has really gotten the whole, control over everything. So environmental laws require BOEM to consult with the Fisheries Service on projects taking place in essential fish habitat, which encompasses all for offshore, but the BOEM is approving the project despite the concerns that are being raised. So it's just to point out to you that the government is all in from the top down, and very, very few folks underneath can say anything. And that's happening at the state level too, because Governor Murphy is 100% all in. And the Department of Environmental Protection, there are people that are whispering, they've got to keep their heads down if they want their jobs. They've just got to keep pushing. So are these turbines environmentally friendly anyway? Well, there's a whole lot that goes into a turbine. They're made from steel. You gotta use coal to make steel. There's iron, there's fiberglass, there's polymers, there's lithium. Lithium is ripped out of third world countries by teenagers or younger. And so we can stand up and say, we have wind turbines, but we're scrounging all over the earth and causing harm all around the world to get these items so that we can make these wind turbines. And each turbine holds about 28,000 gallons of fluids, including, fossil fuels and all other kinds of things that, would be of concern if there was any kind of spill. Their efficiency is about 55%. So if you're building a 12, 15 megawatt turbine, I'll just use, 50% because I don't do math very well. So you're gonna make 6 megawatts, roughly speaking. When they're brand new and working well, each year they lose 4.5% efficiency. So in 10 years, they've lost how much? 40 for another 40%, 45%. So they start at 55, they go down to 45. They only last 20 to 25 years. We're investing billions and hundreds of billions of our taxpayer dollars in something that's only going to last 20 years. And then what are we going to do with them? They have to be decommissioned. How much you bet they're going to say, well, we're just going to chop them off at the bottom or, midway through. Yeah.
Is there anything in place for remediation for taking this stuff out? I mean, it should be presented to these companies that are making it, give them forth the thought that this has to happen.
Really, they're supposed to put up a bond to make sure everything goes back exactly the way.
That's not the point.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's laughable.
Pay for everything.
And BOEM has put a rule out that they can kind of include a lot of other things, like, if they do something nice in a neighborhood, they can include the fact that they've done that. They're really trying to do whatever they can because it would be billions of dollars more for them to have to take these out. But the real kicker is that they can only manage category 3 hurricanes. That was you're gonna.
Yeah, can they do anything? They have all these claims, only use the first three to 5 hurricanes, and it'll snap these things like twigs.
With their 28,000 gallons of whatever they've got on board, yeah. I think I read the total amount is, if you add up all the turbines, it'll be something like 15 million gallons of miscellaneous, all kinds of, lubricants and chemicals and diesel engine fuel, because sometimes they don't spin fast enough, they gotta get them going. So, it's really shocking, really, really shocking.
But for them to build something like this, they have to be making money. They wouldn't be putting more and more up if they weren't making money. So the answer is, what is the answer? Tell me. What do we do if we get rid of these? What do we do then? From the energy that we're gonna get rid of that we're using from these, what do we do? Do we all get on bicycles and start doing the
Yeah,
thing?
but let me just run, what are the alternatives it's a really good question, we've got to figure it out, but these are incredibly intensive, and they're not long-term solutions, right? They're not the long-term solutions. So the blades themselves are not recyclable. Each blade lasts a few years. There's thousands of turbines. There's 3 on each blade. The math gets pretty difficult for me, but it's on thousands and thousands, and they're going to be landfill. The companies are grasping at straws to try to figure out, they're trying to come up with new ways. They think they can incinerate them. Do you know how much energy it would take to incinerate these things?
And
And then they're
pollution.
gonna have, they're gonna melt them down, and they're gonna be some speck of fuel. that
Better
they'll be
off
able to
putting your
use.
money into nuclear fission.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So there's a lot of stuff happening on land too that we're not being told about. Like these just don't pop up like mushrooms, right? There's a big onshore footprint that has to happen. And Atlantic City has been the chosen one. There's a couple of places over on the Delaware that are chosen, and they're huge. They're filling in wetlands to make these onshore facilities. And, so much for sea level rise, I mean, they're putting them all in very, very vulnerable places for sea level rise, which they're not gonna stop that anytime soon. Really quickly, here are the 3 projects closest to New Jersey. Ocean Wind 1, which is off of Ocean City. This is their project. It's 100 turbines. You can see the little dots there are the turbines themselves. So they're very close together. They're gonna rip up this much ocean to bring their thing
Right.
across Island Beach State Park.
Yeah.
And then through Barnegat Bay into Oyster Creek. That's, and these again are high voltage, like
Yes.
high voltage and all that electromagnetic. And then they've got another one that this half of it will be going into, BL England. So into that estuary there, the Egg Harbor.
Yeah, and that's the one that puts right up against the Axel Carlson Reef too.
Which is
No, Axel's farther to the north.
north.
Then it might be, the next one,
This
but-
next one might be
Yeah.
it. But there's a lot, so, and just if you can, I don't know if you can, but can you see the outline of this space, this light
Yeah.
gray? That's all leased by these multinational
Wow.
fossil fuel companies. This company is Ørsted. They're the largest, one of the largest companies in the world. They're half owned by Denmark, half owned by a private company. Their number one source of money comes from coal. So they're a fossil fuel company. They're not, they used to be in oil and gas drilling as well up in the North Sea. They got out of that, but they didn't get out of the coal. And that's what's driving a lot of their growth right now. But they're already asking New Jersey to renegotiate their deal. This stuff is costing more now than when they originally put it in. So they're asking us to sort of up our amount, which will go back to the ratepayers. And to your question about how are they making money, 30% of, if they can get their monopoles in the ground, they will get 30% tax rebates from us, billions and billions of dollars from us. We will cover 30% of their costs, which is what was in the IRA, which I'll get into in a minute. This is Atlantic Shores South, and this is kind of fun. I don't know what bureaucrat came up with this name. So it's 2 projects. There are 2 projects, each about, so it's 200 turbines. They have 1 EIS. Their extension cords going all the way up to Monmouth, all the way up to Long Branch. They're gonna rip up, I don't know if they go through the Shrewsbury Rocks quite, but they go through a lot of habitat, a lot of area with their extension cords. And the other one is going in, again, to Atlantic City. But,
Gonna kill all the benthic organisms along the way. And
sorry, I lied.
Yeah.
This is going in at Seagirt. This one's going in at Seagirt,
Wow.
where that military base is. So wherever they're going in is state or federal land, so they don't have to get local permission. And you know why they don't have to get local permission? Because Ocean City, they originally want to go through Green Acres, and Ocean City said, hell no, that's our park. We want that Green Acres. So the legislators passed a law in record time during the budget season when everything was crazy. They passed a law that prohibits any town from restricting in any way limitations on offshore wind infrastructure of any kind. And turned it all over to the BPU. So Ocean City sued them and said, no, we don't want you to do this. BPU said, under this new law, we say, tough luck, we're gonna do it anyway. So New Jersey towns have no say on this, and that's something that a lot of the mayors are really, really pissed about too. But, oh, sorry, I didn't do it. Oh, well, it's still here. So the bureaucrats came up with, because it's 2 projects, it was Atlantic Shores 1 and Atlantic Shores 2, they decided to name them Atlantic Shores South, which if you look at the acronym,
Nice.
nice, right? So we get to call it the Axe
Yeah.
Project. Really, seriously. So this is what it looks close up. These are all monopoles, a vast area of ocean. These were some of the, the shoaling areas and what have you. It's, they just take up the entire space. And if you think there's some fishermen that think they're gonna be allowed going fishing in there, There's no way. First of all, these turbines are so big, they interfere with radar. And that's not a good thing when you have one of the #1 ports of shipping with oil tankers and chemical tankers and cargo. It's, yeah,
Well, just think, the one change that I've seen at the Fishman in 20 years is so many smaller boats are getting radar. I mean, 20 years ago, you didn't have that. So boats operating at night or in fog, guys going offshore during tournaments, anybody going through that zone, their radar could possibly not work. It's gonna be a serious hazard.
serious hazard,
The
number
Coast
one.
Guard is very concerned about it, but the Coast Guard has been overruled by BOEM as well.
Boom,
Wow.
literally, boom.
Boom.
They also, the Coast Guard can't get in here with their helicopters. So if you're in trouble and you're 50 miles offshore, the cutter has to come out to find you, hopefully. Hopefully. But yeah, because the turbines are too big, they create too much of that. You saw that wake effect, right? Those big wind effects. They can't navigate with a helicopter in that. They're gonna be prohibited. So fishermen are not gonna be, I hate to bust the bubble, because some people think this will be great fishing because the reef effect of
Right.
these, but they're not gonna let you in here. You might be able to sneak in there, but you know, they're not gonna, that's not gonna be a thing. Especially the closer you get to the harbor, because you don't, this one is Empire Wind. So we don't hear a lot about Empire Wind, but this one, I think, is one of the work, well, they're all really bad, but this one is at the gateway to the estuary. So you're talking about putting this massive industrialization right at the estuary, the gateway to all of that marine life that comes in and goes out and comes in and goes out. And it is the largest. It's 290 turbines, I think. And it's also the largest. They want to go 15 megawatt turbines, which are still sort of experimental even. They're among the world's largest existing turbines. And these guys are going to go into, New York. All of the energy is going to New York, but this area is, so ecologically rich. It is unbelievably important. In fact, they admit that 75%, this will affect 75% of the commercial fishing income. Just one project. It's really, it's
It's criminal.
it is criminal. And this is just the beginning. There's still Ocean Wind 2. There's all these other projects that are lined up. Project after project after project. These are just the first 3 that are going to be happening within this year. They're going to, Orsted off of Ocean City, that decision is going to be made July 23rd, 24th, something like that. There's public hearings happening now on the ASK project. There's public hearings coming up the end of June. Please go to our website. You can submit comments. Just anything. We're asking for an extension of the comment period too, but we're probably not going to get it because of.
Boom.
So what are the alternatives? So we've always provided alternatives, but the idea that ocean industrialization would be the fix, as you can see, it doesn't really add up. It doesn't really add up. So there's a lot of energy waste that goes on, especially in the US. We could be doing a lot more energy conservation. We have we do not so smart things with so for example, Bitcoin. I'm sorry if some of you have Bitcoin, but perhaps you don't know it's a computer game that you need intense amount of energy for. You need thousands and thousands of computers to play the game. So you've got to be very well positioned to get in the game. And then all of this energy that it takes for one Bitcoin is enough to power one US household for 13 years. And you can look it up. It's not, it is huge amounts of energy that are being used to make find Bitcoin for people that are at that level that can play that game, who probably don't really need the Bitcoin. Or we could be doing different things than Bitcoin. Let's make something. Let's do something rather than play a computer game for Bitcoin. And From a global perspective, everybody mining the Bitcoin is about the equivalent of energy that Australia uses in a year. So if we just said, no, you can't do Bitcoin mining anymore, that's how much energy that we could save. Ocean save. So I want a couple other things. I know I'm going super late, but I'm hoping that you're finding it informative. The Inflation Reduction Act is one of the things that's spurring all of this because everything is being fast tracked. There was a law passed. It was a lot of fanfare. There was so much dirty stuff buried in there. But one of the things it expedited, and as I said, it gave a lot of incentive to the fossil fuel company. The wind energy companies. So I mentioned that Ørsted is coal, right? Atlantic Shores is Shell, and Empire Wind is BP and Stat Oil. They are fossil fuel companies. So when you see everybody saying, oh, it's those fossil fuel industries that are trying to stop the offshore wind, it's like, no, it's not. It's really, they are after these freebies is 30%, but they have to have it in by, they have to have monopoles in by 2026. One of the other dirty things in there is that for every wind lease, so for 10 years, BOEM is prohibited from leasing offshore wind unless 60 million acres are offered for offshore oil and gas. Let me repeat that. So if they issue leases for offshore wind, they are obligated to offer offshore drilling areas to the tune of 60 million acres. Every year, 60 million acres for 10 years.
What?
So for a total of 600 million acres. But this is all about reducing our use of fossil fuels, right? That's what you hear the president saying. That's what you hear all the opponents
It
saying.
says a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, it's like, no, they sold it down. In order to put up wind, you have to give away 60 million acres. I mean, it's unbelievable. The other thing it said is that it would allow oil and gas, the amount of oil and gas leasing that we have to increase 75% over the next 10 years. So it's not reducing fossil fuels. It's not reducing anything. And it also opened up US territories like Guam, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico to this. So it opens up those island territories to drilling now, as well as to offshore wind. And then finally, in the debt bill that was we just passed, right, the debt ceiling bill that was supposed to, Senator Manchin got a 300-mile pipeline crossing 1,000 streams without any environmental review for natural gas. So, you know, everyone's saying that, you know, these are all to help us reduce our use of fossil fuels, but they're not reducing use of fossil fuels. How many of you have heard about the Willow Project up in the Alaskan Wildlife Refuge?
No.
Huge amount of fossil fuel development in one of the most pristine environments left on Earth.
I'm very curious when you say fossil fuels, right? So we're supposed to be using, these are electric turbines, right? How does fossil fuel get involved? Is it the making of these products that it's involved, or is it to help run it?
No,
Yes,
so that
yes,
they're just
yes.
saying if you want to build a turbine over here, you have to allow somebody to drill for oil over here.
Got it
60 million acres.
now. Okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
So if
And then
every
over 10
turbine
years.
gets built off of that, those means another oil rig in Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
that, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Thanks for clarifying, yeah. It's
How duplicitous.
duplicitous, yeah, it's hypocritical, duplicity, whatever.
They know what-
Government, who would imagine?
They know what they're doing. They're taking advantage of the rush to have them in by 26. They're getting all these freebies.
And that's just the beginning. And that's
Wow.
something that I've also, again, it's just the beginning of the wind industry, but it's also just the beginning of more industrialization.
Wow.
So the Biden administration has something called the Ocean Climate Action Plan, and it's all this really well-chosen words about how we're going to use the blue ocean to help us have a more sustainable world. And by that, we mean that, so underneath those wind turbines will be massive aquaculture fields. Where they'll be putting combined fish in pens, feeding them whatever. If they get sick,
They
they're
can
gonna
eat
put
the dead
chemicals,
birds.
pathogen,
They could eat the dead birds that fall.
Yeah, they could eat the dead birds, yeah, and then, if if they all get sick, they can all get their like. Douse of whatever kind of chemicals they're gonna be dousing them with. The other thing is, carbon sequestration by injection. So these are facilities that are gonna be built to absorb the carbon out of the air and then inject them into the seafloor. So what are the two things that the ocean is being impaired by from climate change? It's heat and ocean acidification, right? Caused by carbon, CO2 from being discharged. So now we're heating up the ocean with these turbines and we're going to be injecting CO2. And then the other one is ocean mining, where they're gonna be strip mining the ocean floor for different minerals and things. And so it's really a bad plan. And we're saying it's too much too fast. We have never really, as I said, we supported a pilot project for our offshore wind. We still support a pilot for offshore wind because I think it will shed a lot of light on the impacts. But there's no interest whatsoever in the government right now for doing a pilot project first. Like I said, ocean wind is probably happening, in July. We've got the other ones. So we really need the voices. We really need every one of you to be a voice. This is turnaroundable. Remember when they said, well, I'm never going to stop ocean dumping. There's too much money, right, Al? There was just a lot of people that said, you're never going to get GE to clean up those PCBs. You're never going to do that. You're never going to, and then, it's come a long way. Not solved perfectly, but we've come a long way.
Cindy, how do we motivate you?
You get your voices out. You get your voices out and up and loud, and I've got a sign-up sheet if you want to get involved. You can go to our website to get involved. We're going to be announcing on Thursday a campaign. How many of you remember the Clean Ocean Zone? Yeah, probably not much. This is hopefully first a public awareness campaign, and then hopefully legislation to give the ocean some laws. Our biggest problem is the ocean has no laws protecting her. She's like, completely vulnerable. The laws they're all restricted on you guys. They're all restricted on fishermen that want to fish. There's no real laws protecting the ocean ecosystem. And which is why they're able to go do all this stuff. And there's no laws. We can try. The whales have some protection, the North Atlantic right whale, but how environmentalists can be saying that the right whale will survive this is unbelievable, but they are saying it because most environmental groups are so bought into it. But we really need your voices. You guys carry a lot of weight, as you heard from Jim, and as the report from the legislative committee. People listen to the sportsmen, and right now, I'll tell you right now. And Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the vast majority of what is being heard is that the recreational fishermen are all in and supportive of this. That's the ones that show up at the hearings are all talking about how great this is going to be. The ones that are, testifying, the ones that are showing up at events, they're all in support.
The only thing I would say is Cindy and I talked about it today, and a lot of us talked about it. They're the ones that are getting invited. They're the ones that are getting invited to testify. They're the ones that are getting invited to speak to the media. I've criticized several journalists who, when they talk about industrial offshore wind, they go to Anglers for Offshore Wind, which is bought and paid for. They're getting paid for this. One of the key advocates as a side hustle, he's getting paid for this. The media is going to them.
Yeah.
And I've been trying very arduously to get some of the mainstream media folks to talk to our fishermen who are really engaged in this issue. And hopefully
That's great. I think the wheels are beginning to turn, not the wheels, but the attitudes are they're because of the whales. If it wasn't for the whales,
Yeah, sure.
nobody would have been paying attention to this. We've been screaming about it. Jim's been talking about it. We've been talking about it, but people are like, oh, well, it's out there and it's just some turbines, and why should we worry about some turbines? But the whales and the dolphins, that has raised people's awareness.
People don't realize, I never realized the scope of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't anchor past the whole East Coast with the Chesapeake and
They're going all the way down to South Carolina.
with the same
Con-
concentration of.
Most of it gets a little bit thinner down there.
It worse than Louisiana.
Well, but it's, there are, South Carolina just had an area, they call it the wind energy area, WPA. They have now a big area, and Virginia has one, you know, they're going down the coast. I mean, they got more money, that boom, got more money in that IRA too, to work the system.
So if it really doesn't do much offshore wind to reduce greenhouse gas emissions
No,
and fight climate change,
Yeah.
when can the environmentalists, which I consider all of us here to be environmentalists,
Here's
when
the
can people get behind the idea of small nuclear reactors as being the safer alternative to really, if you really want to save the environment in the world, why not switch toward that?
There's no question about that at all.
Yeah, but
It's the easiest way to go.
yeah.
Support.
I mean, there are lots of other options, and what's exciting is that there's a lot of new technology coming out. There's a lot of fusion technologies that are finally beginning to work. And there's a lot more efficiency. There's solar panels, and anything on land is gonna be a lot easier to maintain and a lot cheaper and a lot
100%.
safer than anything out in the ocean.
well, Cindy,
Anyway, yeah,
thank you so
sorry,
much.
that was
I
so
hate to
long,
break this up
sorry.
because I think we could go on for
Yeah,
another hour because there's enough. interested
Get more hot dogs.
Where's Pete? Get that grill back out here. Let's go. Billy,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
thank you so much for having me.
Right. How was good?
Please, Jim,
Back again in a couple of months.
we have HRFA coffee and coffee mugs for both you to take home. Cindy, you get a bottle of wine. You got yours last time.
All right,
Donation.
thank
Talk
you.
about that at our next board meeting.
Thank you,
And
guys.
thank you.
So great
very,
seeing so
very,
many
very much.
new faces and new ones, and thank you so much. It's really great. You guys wanna,
Yes,
Share-
your
share the
petition
information.
is also online. It's in our
Yep.
webpage.
Yep.
But not on our webpage, but it is in our newsletter. Any phone scratches.
oh, yeah.
Well, one of them?
Someone said vote for scenic Montego.
I put two already.
Thank you.
Thank you. Get some voice. All right, let's get your voice.
Hey, Rick. See you too.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Share that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing everything. Second time. Yeah.
Hit a blanket. I don't know. No, it's too late. Your wife, yeah.
Yeah, something else.
We're gonna go back.
Thank you.
Tony, Cindy says hi. Tony pays,
Tony.
Tony donates to pay for these Zoom meetings.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
you gotta
Tony.
zoom up here. You gotta zoom up here, Tony. So, yeah, because I kind of have to like